for anyone who doesn't know you, would you mind terribly just introducing yourself and just giving us a brief description of your kind of how you got to this stage?
Yeah, so basically I've been an investor since 2001. That's when I started buying flats. Before that, I started off working in Sainsbury's. I was in Sainsbury's for about 11 years. That overlapped with my college lecturer job, where I stayed in for like 15 years. So I was teaching maths there. So I did A-level maths, GCSE maths, levels below that. Also taught some SEN students, people with special needs. So in the class, there's a mixture actually. I might get some of the words wrong in terms of PC, but we had deaf people in there, we had dumb people, visually impaired. We had some autistic children in there as well. So as a mixture, visually impaired ones, for example, I had to use special paper because they couldn't see text on white paper. So I had to use anything apart from white. So it could be blue, pink, yellow, just so they could see it. Amazing. And every time, obviously, I taught lessons. Is
that why I use yellow paper?
Exactly, so you can see properly. Yeah, that's it. So we've done that. Obviously, when I was giving talks, I had to make sure I faced the class rather than towards the interactive whiteboard. So some of the blind people not blind people, some of the visually impaired people and some of the others, dumb people can read my lips going forward as well. But yes, I've done that. A-levels, maths, GCSE and below at the college. Before that, I was in Sainsbury's, started off in the grocery section, stacking the waters. And then after that, I done well, so they put me in the bread aisle. Yeah, so they gave me my own aisle. And then from then, used to do a lot of overtime on checkouts, doing trolleys. And then I got till trained. And after that, I started doing a bit of tills, checkout stuff as well. And then I was just saving. We used to do some night shift as well, by the way. So when I did night shift, it just happened once where one of the night shift staff were ill. And then by standing beside my manager, he's like, Jerry, so-and-so's phoned up sick. You got anyone that can do night shift? And then I was to the left of my manager. I just finished my shift at 9:30. So he said to me, Jason, fancy doing night shift? I was like, I'll start at like 6 in the morning to do the breads. He said, yeah, don't worry. I will sort you out. So what I done, I said, all right, they might as well, because I wasn't going raving that day. So started night shift at 10 p.m. Then worked through till about, I think it was 5:30. And then had a little half an hour break. And then after that, started my normal shift at 6 till about 1:30-ish. I mean, some I know, it's crazy. Then sometimes I used to do that quite a bit just to put up some cash. So but while I was there, I was just stacking. And then I managed to get my first buy-to-let in 2001. A one-bedroom flat, purpose-built flat. And then I rented it out. And then it just all started from there. So, but one of the reasons why I started was mainly because I wanted to move out of mum's house. Because when you're living at home, obviously early 20s, you're thinking, I want to bring girls back. You're thinking, like, where do you live? Oh, mum's house. It works. You do all them chatting.
It's not cool.
Exactly, it's not cool, yeah. And then you say, where do you live? Mum's house. I lost about 10 points straight away. So I was like, no, I did all that hard work just gone to waste. So one of the reasons to move out of mum's house, definitely, needed to boost my income as well. Because Sainsbury's wage and the teaching wage wasn't even that great. So I needed to boost it somehow. And then
But can I ask, just stopping there just very quickly, so that clearly was a real driver. I mean, we joke about it, but it's little things like that, isn't it, that can really drive you. It's like, I've got 17-year-old boys at the moment. I've got twins, and the different things that you can see that drive them, but that can be a massive driver, isn't it? You want to get a girlfriend, and it's not cool to bring them back. They're like, what my son, I said I'd give him £1,000 to buy a car, and he was like, I'm not having a car for £1,000. So he saved up another £2,000 to buy himself a really nice £3,000 car. So again, so is that kind of what initially drove you, or was there more than that drove you on that journey?
Yeah, it's mainly about. I just wanted to be financially independent going forward. So, like I said, I wanted to move out. So I did produce a spreadsheet. I mean, I worked out that I'd be £50 down every month if I continued the way I was. And I thought, wait a minute, what if my car broke down, or what if I need to go on holiday, or what if I had an emergency and I moved out and then I needed extra cash? That means I have to ask my gran or my mum for some extra money. But I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be self-sufficient as well and independent. So one of the main reasons wasn't to be like a multi-millionaire or to have a large portfolio. It was just to be more financially independent, so I can rely on people less. And that's how it started, basically.
Amazing. So just sort of jumping ahead, I can just see that, you know, clearly you've got an incredible mind around numbers. Right from the beginning, you know, you're there with spreadsheets, you're working it all out, hugely dedicated. You've got an early reason that you have when you're a young lad of why, you know, what was driving you at that stage. I'm sure that's changed over time. I know you've got a little one now as well, so these things can change. So you bought your first investment property. So where in your journey did you start getting into the short leases?
Well, my first actual lease extension I done in 2002. Is mainly because the first one that I bought, it had the lease of about, I can't remember, 83, 84 years. And then someone mentioned to me that, don't let it go below 80 years, which is the marriage value, otherwise it's going to be more expensive for you. So I thought, all right. So a year after I bought it, the first one, I extended the lease on that one. So that one I extended to 125 years. And the ground rent, I got reduced to £50 per year rather than £100 per year. So that was a voluntary lease extension as well. So that was the first time that I'd done one. So it was about 21 years ago. And then after that, with the ones that I was doing, I wasn't doing short leases then. I was just doing normal vanilla buy-to-lets, reconfiguration, like 1 bed to 2 beds or 2 beds to 3 beds. And then also refurbishment as well. So those are the main ones what I was doing initially. I mean, up until about maybe 12, 13 years ago, maybe something like that. That's when I started to get to the short leases fully. Because as you know, after the credit crunch, things changed a little bit. And then I had about, I think it must have been about 8 or 9 mortgages with Birmingham Midshires or BM Solutions at the time. And then what they said to me was they were like the TMW back then. You can have as many mortgages as possible with them and it wouldn't flutter.
So you mean
after the credit crunch?
TMW, do you mean the mortgage works?
Yeah, the mortgage works, yeah. Part of the nationwide buy-to-let arm. So what they done, they changed their criteria. So after the credit crunch, they changed it to maybe only, I think it was like a limited of 3 or 4 buy-to-lets at the time. Now, I had about, I said 8 or 9 of them. And I said, right, they said to me, I can keep the mortgages with them. They were on like 0.99 above base rate. So I was happy. The amount of cash flow that I was getting per month from them was like ridiculous. The only problem is they said to me, right, you got with us for a long time, but you can't take out any extra capital from them. So that was a catch-22. So I was either leave it with them and get high cash flow, and just leave my cash in there, like my capital, without taking anything out. So I thought, you know what, let me just leave 4 or 5 of them. And then the other 4, I'm going to change over to another lender, just take out some equity. So that's what I did. And then with 3 of them, the leases were fine. This is flats, by the way. And then with the 4th one, the Connell surveyor said to me, look, the lease is 72 years. We can't lend you the 30 grand out of this property. We can only lend you, like, for example, I don't know, I think it was 7 or 8 or 9 grand then. But the other 20 odd grand, you can release once you extend the lease. So I said, all right, then that's fine. So I got equity from the other ones. And then that particular one, I wrote to the freeholder and I asked them, would it be possible for you to give me a quote to extend the lease? And I put in a little cheeky, really willing to tell me the freehold. And then leaseholders come back to me and said, yeah, we'll offer you this price for the lease extension. And yes, we're willing to sell you the freehold. So I was happy with that. So what they done, served a Section 10 notice to the flat upstairs, notifying them that there could be a change of ownership in terms of the freehold. And if the letter said, Mr. Patterson has expressed an interest in purchasing the freehold, either jointly or solely. So you have 14 days to reply. And then if there's no reply within 14 days, then I'll be selling the freehold to Mr. Patterson. So they came back and then they said, yeah, that will do it. That we went in, so we bought it together. So we bought the freehold from the freeholder. And then we extended our own leases to 999 going forward. And then we went back to a mortgage company and then they released the rest of the funds after that. So that was my first experience after that. So I said, you know what, this is a good idea. I can buy flats with short leases, extend the lease, and then after that, it creates uplift in value, just release the equity. So I started looking around for flats with short leases. Initially, it was just conversions, because there's no service charge with conversions, just pay builder's insurance and ground rent. And then I also started looking at flats above shops, because them ones are good for reconfiguration. Because you've got the commercial unit downstairs, a lot of the time the freehold is open to you reconfiguring upstairs. So that's what I did. I bought a lot of shops above flats, reconfigured them, as you know, 1 bed to 2 beds, 2 beds to 3 beds. Some of them had refurbs to do as well, and it had a short lease. So those are the ones that I call the triple threat. Yeah. So if you can do all 3 things
so what
there,
are those
you can
3?
make the most money out of them.
So what were the 3 then?
So you got the short leases. Yeah. That's one. You can reconfigure it from 1 bed to a 2 bed, 2 bed to a 3 bed.
Yeah.
And it needs a refurb.
Oh.
So three elements there. So them ones are called a triple threat. So if you've got any triple threats, you can make the most money out of them easily. Not easily, but you can make most money out of them going forward.
They got them.
So that's how it started.
The most kind of added value, so to speak.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Amazing.
A lot of people don't like flats because you've got, obviously it's leasehold, so you've got service charge to pay every month. You've got annual ground rent to pay as well. Now and again, you might have major works to pay if they want to do something to the block. You have to answer to the freeholder at times. The service charge increases on average 2 to 5% per year as well. A lot of people don't like flats, but you can also make a lot of money out of flats if that's what you want to do in terms of cash flow. So that's what I've been doing going forward, especially in London, because like I said, when I first started, I couldn't afford to buy the houses because they're too expensive on my wage. So I thought if I wanted to become financially free, then I've got to start somewhere. So I just started with flats. And then, as you know already, probably know already, got to the first 4 flats. While I was in Sainsbury's, like buy to let, roughly about £500, £600 profit per flat, just on average. Then that matched my full-time wages. Then I moved out, bought my 5th one. Again, while I was in Sainsbury's, 1 bedroom flat, 100 grand and 5% deposit. And then I thought, oh, that's all right. I've matched my wages. Why am I stopping here? Still young. Yeah, not even 27 yet, 26, wherever it was. Still young, matched my full-time wages. I'm continuing. Amazing. And then luckily, I scaled by the rental income that was coming in. I also done it by, what was it? Capital appreciation, yeah, that came up. Also had doing private maths tuition as well, working in Sainsbury's, the rental income from the other one. So I had a lot of income streams coming in, so I could start to scale and scale faster, like a snowball effect.
Amazing.
But then, yeah, while I was there, just doubled my income, then tripled it, then quadrupled it. And I thought, you know what, now it's time to leave full-time employment, and I just left.
And what year did you do that?
2015, I think.
Amazing.
Yeah. But before that, I went part-time. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I think it was, I went part-time. So I went down to 2.5 days a week, which was 17.5 hours. I mean, I went down to 2 days a week, which was 14 hours, and then I quit.
Amazing.
I just needed something to do because otherwise you just get bored.
That's these are kind of first world problems, but also very serious problems if you don't address it and you don't understand that can be an issue. Look, Jason, your story is just, you know, absolutely incredible, and I love it. And you know, part of this, as you know, I've got my young boys, and I really, you know, somebody like you is a total inspiration, and I wanted to do this to help us to help them, as well as me being selfish, because I really wanted to have that chat with you, and obviously, you know, to share it to my community as well. So if I may just sort of jump in, I mean, I understand from what you said, you know, and I've listened to you on a number of occasions. So, you know, you've talked about this kind of lease extension process is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one with, you have a voluntary lease extension, and you have to put in this section 42 notice. But I wanted to just step back one more step before we go through that. You've mentioned this 80-year kind of level, and you apparently don't go for anything that's above 80. You always go kind of below 80, but between the 60 and the 80 year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And can you just to give us sort of a bit more detail, why not above 80 and why not below 60, so we get a bit more understanding of that?
Yeah, so basically 80 years is what you call the marriage value. So every leasehold property has a marriage value. And if it, as soon as it gets below 80 years, then the property starts to diminish in value, going down bit by bit by bit. If it's above 80 years, then the property value should remain fine-ish. But the closer it gets towards 80, then the leaseholder stroke freeholder will be licking their lips thinking, yeah, there's some money coming in soon. But 80 years is a marriage value.
And what does that mean? I know that can be quite complex, but is there a sort of a simplistic description of that?
Yeah, basically, the definition in a way is the marriage value is a difference in a leaseholder's property's value after the lease has been extended compared to what it is before the lease has been extended.
Okay, yeah, so what you're saying, if it's worth, after the extension, it's worth, let's say 120, and before the extension, it's worth, I don't know, 105, the marriage value is 15,000. That's probably very simplistic, but exactly. Something like that.
Yeah, so that's what it is, like in plain English in a way. Now, the reason why I like to go between 60-ish, I'll say about 55 and 80 years really, is because I like to get mortgages on them. So if you go below 50, it's a lot harder to get a mortgage on it. But I like to get mortgages on them so I can get cash flow coming in and put down smaller deposit. It's lower interest rate in that sense. So that's probably the main reason why I do it. But most lenders, not all of them, but most lenders, if the lease is basically, if you get a mortgage with a normal lender, a lot of them will give you a mortgage, but the lease cannot be lower than 50 years at the end of the mortgage term.
Oh.
So this is why I like lenders which have that kind of criteria. But NatWest, for example, NatWest will lend to you if the lease goes down to 30 years. Yeah, but they got certain criteria that you need to follow going forward. So the reason why I do that, like I said, between 55-ish and about 80 is because I like to get mortgages in them. Yeah.
And is there, okay, is there, this is just a side question, is there any way, so like my folks, for instance, have got a freehold and they own one of the flats, it's a 2-flat block, and then the top flat is obviously owned by someone else, but it's currently at about 64 years. You know, presumably the leaseholder is just allowed to just keep going and going and going. They don't have to renew, or is there anything where they have to renew, or they can just keep going for another 64 years and until it finishes?
Yeah, they can keep going, but don't have to renew it if they don't want to. But every year that they leave it, they're losing value, and the cost of that lease extension is going to go up and up and up and up and up. So the shorter the lease, in theory, the more it's going to cost you to obviously increase it, and the more profit in theory you can make if you're an investor going forward. So that particular person, if, for example, they wanted to sell it to you, they could get on a normal mortgage, they could do it, or get a 13-year mortgage basically, because the lease in theory shouldn't be lower than 50 years at the end of the mortgage term. So you can give that a normal buy-to-let rate, wherever the current rates are now, 5%, 5.5%. They can do that. Put down 25% deposit, and they should pass the stress testing, and you should pass the affordability checks because it's below market value. So I know at the moment a lot of the buy-to-lets, when you stress test them, they're not passing the stress tests because like the rental calculation don't stack up. But with these, they'll stack up every time because it's below the market value, which is good. That's why it works in any market going forward.
And just to clarify that, the stress testing, I think, is basically the the rental that comes in has to be the mortgage times anywhere between 125 and 145%, and that the rent must cover that for it to be deemed as affordable, basically, and that's kind of the stress test.
That's it. Yeah, and they put the rates up. Depending on the person, depending on the bank, they might stress test it at 6%, 7%, 8%. It depends on the bank as well. And exactly what you said, like I said, it could be a 125% calculation up to 145% calculation. If you're buying under a limited company or if you're buying under a personal name, it's going to be different. So all these things we've got to take into consideration. But the ones I've got recently, like the last year or so, completed on 4. So it's passes the test, even though the interest rates have been rising on the Liz Trust and Kamikaze and all of them.
There's been a few. It's difficult to remember.
Yeah, been a few. I still get mortgages on them, on the ones I do anyway, so that's good. But I know some people have been having trouble getting it because they're not passing the stress test. So they might have to put down a 35% deposit and do a 65% loan to value in order for it to stack up. And this happened kind of last time as well. Because during the credit crunch, or before the credit crunch, you could put down a 15% deposit. And then credit crunch happened. And then afterwards, they changed their criteria and you had to put down either 20% or 25%. And then now, 2023, the 25% deposit, 75% loan to value is not stacking up. So it could be another shift towards people putting down a 35% deposit, which is a 65% loan to value. So I've seen it from 15% to 20% to 25%, and then possibly now 35%. So it's going up bit by bit by bit over the times. But it depends on obviously what you buy and what form of entity you buy in.
Amazing.
Yeah. So some of the lenders that I like to use for short leases, again, this may change depending on current market. We've got the mortgage lender. They call them TML. Yeah, the mortgage lender. We've got Kensington, who just got purchased by Barclays Bank. So we'll see if they're going to keep them as Kensington, or they might merge them into their system and get rid of the short lease. By the moment, they offer short leases. We've got Land Bay, got Foundation Home Loans, got Capital Home Loans, got Kent Reliance, they're quite good. We've got a mortgage lender, they do it down to 70 years in terms of a lease. You've got Fleet Mortgages, you have Precise Mortgages, you have Paragon Bank, NatWest going down to 30 years at the moment. You've got HSBC, you've got West One, you've got Bank of India, they call them SBI for short. There's loads of lenders that will lend to you on the short leases.
Amazing.
Now, if it goes below 50, there's only a handful of lenders, like I say, but you might have to use bridging finance. So if you're going to use bridging, there's 2 main routes that the bridgers like you to use going forward. So with the bridgers, the first one is they'll give you the bridge at 25% or 30% deposit. Yeah, so 70% loan to value or 65% loan to value. Then the rule is you must serve a Section 42 notice in between exchange and completion. Yeah, that's rule number 1. So serve a section 42 notice in between exchange and completion. The other type of bridge that you can get is where the lender will lend to you, yeah, but you have to complete the lease extension before the bridge ends. Yeah, so you must complete before the bridge ends. So those are the two main ones. You also got a hybrid product as well. The hybrid product is where they'll pay for the property, they'll pay for the lease extension, and then you put down a 25 or 30% deposit going forward. So those are the two main bridges. I mean, the hybrid product is like a mix of the two.
And do
with
you,
the hybrid product,
when
sometimes you get fixed in for like 2 years.
So do you use that? Because obviously you talked about mainly doing it between sort of 60 and 80 years. So have you used this kind of bridge option as well?
No, I've always done mortgages.
Okay, so I like that because you're really experienced. So I'm taking from that I probably might not be looking at that bit. So I'm going to be looking at the things that you've done.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. But you have to make sure you've done the maths, and as well with the bridge, obviously you're going to extend the lease. Now at land registry, there's been some delays. So one, because of COVID, it's taken ages sometimes to register a lease extension or even register a property, title deeds, whatever it may be. And then recently, last week, they were on strike again because obviously inflation. Obviously teachers were striking, NHS workers, TfL workers, bus drivers, whoever it may be, they're striking. And also land registry was striking. HMRC even struck recently as well. Yeah.
Oh my.
So with this now, land registry has obviously gone on strike. They're back this week, I think. When was it? Yeah, but they're back today in some areas. So that's going to cause an even more of a delay. So depending on what you're doing, when you extend a lease, in theory, it should take you about three months-ish for it to be registered. But with some of the ones I've done recently, it's taken 8 months, 9 months to be registered.
Wow.
So my sister logged on to the, you can get them expedited as well sometimes. But my sister logged on and said, yeah, it's in the queue, ready to be registered, but hasn't been registered yet. So if you're going to refinance that property, or if you're going to sell that property, some lenders will want it to be registered at land registry before they actually move forward with that. So if you're on a bridge and then you're going to do a refinance or sell it afterwards, the other bank will look at them, download the documents from land registry and think, right, it's still on the old title, like it's still on old lease land. We're not giving you any money until it's been updated. But it's out of your control. Sometimes you can get, like I said, expedited, sped up, and then it's all right, but sometimes it's not possible. So if you're on a bridge for like 6 months, and then you've got to extend it by another 2-3 months, could be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month going forward on that bridge. If you've got any refurbs to do or reconfiguration, that's going to eat into your profits.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful going forward if you're going to use a bridge with short leases. It works well when land registry are on time.
But we can't, and it's all about, isn't it, controlling the things that you can control and having as few things in the deal that you can't control, because otherwise that gets a bit scary and we all want to sleep at night, don't we? So yeah, really interesting. Another question that I've got, so we've got all of these different lengths of leases. So you've got, 99 years, 125, 999, 125. Then you talk about 90 years above the current lease. I mean, where does it fall into this? Is it just the cost? It's more expensive, for instance, to get a 999 lease than a 125, or how do you decide what kind of lease extension you're going to go for?
Well, in general, if I'm doing, well, if we start with section 42 first. If we're doing section 42 notice, then what happens is you extend the lease by 90 years with peppercorn ground rent going forward. So that's with a section 42 notice. That's the only way that you can obviously extend the lease and buy that amount. Okay. Right? So peppercorn ground rent, which means 0 ground rent, and it's 90 years above what it is at the moment. So just for argument's sake, last year, actually, the rules changed. I think it was the 30th of June 2022. Any new lease extension is going to has to have peppercorn ground rent going forward. So, just for argument's sake, say you have a lease which is 60 years, and you go down the Section 42 route, and it's extended by 90 years with peppercorn ground rent, so you're going to have a 150-year lease left on it now. Now, depending on how you or your solicitor have negotiated this, the remaining 60 years, or the first 60 years, shall I say, will be on the old ground rent, which could be £100 a month, £100 a year, £50 a year, whatever it may be. And then when that expires, then the new 90-year lease will be on peppercorn ground rent. So if I go down the Section 42 route, which I've been doing anyway sometimes, and I extend it by 90 years to 150, I get peppercorn ground rent from day one.
Is that just a negotiation? Is that literally just a question of asking, can we do this?
Yeah, a negotiation basically, yeah. So try and do it from day one. Some of them might be sly and do it the other way, which is the normal way in a way. But I want it from day one. So as soon as you extend the lease, I want 150 years with peppercorn ground rent from the start, from day one. Yeah, so they might offer you the first route, try and reject it, and then just obviously try and get it from day one, right? Now, if you're doing the voluntary route, then like you said, you can extend it, the lease, to 99 years, to 125 years. You can also do the 90 years about peppercorn ground rent as well. You can extend it to 999 years as well. And one that I've done recently is 99 years from the start of the original lease. So this lease started in 1987, and then they've agreed to extend it by 999 from 1987, not from 2003. But I'm happy with that anyway. I'm fine with that anyway, because it's still going to be a long lease. So
999 still a fair whack, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. So if you extend it to 99 years, it's going to be a bit cheaper. But if you're doing 125 or above, then you might as well just go for 999 if you can, going forward. But Jeremy Hunt mentioned last week, was it last week? I think it was last week or week before that, at the King's speech, should I say?
It's weird, isn't it? I said that to my parents last night. It's like so weird. I was around London and I was like, oh no, it's the King, not the Queen.
That's it, it's changed now. Yeah, so but he said he's going to try and reform the leasehold itself. Now, one of the reasons why he's doing it is because the big players were taking advantage of people buying houses. So obviously there's leasehold flats, but then there's also leasehold houses. And what some of the big players were doing, big like major developers, they were building houses with leases on them. And then there's all different variations to this, but one of the variations was they'll do it to have ground rent to maybe £100 a year, and then every 5 years that will double. Yeah, and then what they'll do, they'll package it up, and then they'll sell it on to another person or another company. Now, when the ground rent doubles every so often, when it goes above 250, for example, the lenders don't like it at all. So if you try and get a mortgage or a remortgage and your ground rent's doubled or doubling every 20 years or every 33 years or something like that, lenders will not give you the mortgage. So there were some mortgage prisoners who went on some variable and they were just being killed because of that. And then, so they've cut it out now, which is good. That's where that reform came in last year. And then the new one now, obviously leasehold houses. Again, is more aimed at that. Obviously, you've got leasehold flats as well, but it's more aimed at that because he wants people to actually own their property rather than just lease it in that sense. So he's thinking about possibly somehow abolishing the marriage value, which I don't know how he's going to do because he's going to, in theory, he's got to compensate some of the freeholders somehow.
And also when you think about, like, we've got towns near us where, you know, old families own like literally half or most of the town on a freehold, and sometimes they're very positive, sometimes they're not. So with that kind of old family money, there's going to be a lot of backbenchers who might be making some bits against that. So but so going back to those basics again, so you've talked about the section 42 and then the voluntary lease. Could you just explain the sort of the difference between those two?
Yeah, the voluntary one is more, you can write to the freeholder yourself, or if you want to, you can get your solicitor to write to the freeholder on your behalf. I just write to them myself. And then in those letters, you can ask them.
Is that when you own it yourself? Sorry. So is that if you've bought it and then after 2 years, that's when you'd write the letter? Is that correct?
Yeah. In theory, you're meant to own it for 2 years before you can apply for a lease extension, but you can do it beforehand. I mean, it's up to the freeholder if they want to say yes or no.
Oh, okay. So it's more of a choice thing.
Yeah, all of the cases that I've done, none of them have told me to wait until 2 years.
Is that because they don't know, do you think? Or
they want the cash. They want the cash. If they're getting 25, 30 grand, 40 grand, like being offered that, they want it now. They don't want to wait 2 years or 3 years time or whenever it is. They want it now.
So have you ever had anyone say, "Oh no, I don't want the money, let's wait for 2 years"?
No, not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
But you've always owned it at that stage, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But if you're doing it beforehand, if you're doing it for profit, we want to extract your cash straight away, then the best thing to do is get the vendor to serve a section 42 notice on your behalf. And then you've got 2 ways of doing this one afterwards. They assign the section 42 notice over to yourself, and then you can complete that within the first 6 to 8 weeks if you've got a decent solicitor, and then you can extend the lease that way. You can get them to serve a section 42 notice when you're purchasing it, and then you can offer to pay the cost of lease extension before you complete. So I've done some where I've extended the lease, I've exchanged, and I've completed all on the same day. So as soon as I get the keys, it's a new lease extension straight away. And if you're doing it the voluntary route as well, like the one bought 3 during lockdown 1, is it March 2020? That sort of time, April 2020 and June 2020. I think the April one, the woman is a 64-year lease, and on the viewing was the agent, and she was at home as well, the vendor. So I said, do you have any idea of how much it costs to extend my lease? And then she said, I've got, wait 1 minute, I've got a document in my top drawer in the kitchen. So she's come back, gave me the document. I showed us the document, and the quote was there. So I said, okay. Obviously, she didn't have the money to extend it. So that's where I come in, because she wanted to sell it. Said, I can't afford this, like 18.5 grand, can't extend the lease. So that's where obviously us investors come in to try and buy it. And then I said, all right then, because you've got it there, and that's a reasonable figure for this lease, can you start the process of extending the lease? I'll pay for it. And then when we complete, I'll have a new lease, obviously exchange and complete all on the same day.
Did you have some kind of like reservation agreement or something, or was it, the fact that you'd already kind of agreed? Because, presumably if you're going ahead and buying it, she could have then pulled out and then put it back on the market as a full lease?
She could have, I suppose, but the money, I didn't transfer the money until we exchanged contracts. Okay. Well, I put down 10% then as well.
So it's kind of like in between. So it was, it was all in place, I see.
Yeah, and then that actual lease extension money was transferred to the freeholder when I transferred the rest of the deposit. So a few days before we completed, that's when I transferred the rest of the money over. And then it's all completed. So like I said, exchanged, extended the lease, and completed all on the same day. So you can do it that way as well, by the voluntary route. As long as you have an idea of what the lease extension cost is, and if you're happy with it, then you can start the process that way and then complete it before, or actually when you get the keys. There's all different variations. But if you're not happy with the actual quote that is on the document and you see it firsthand, then it probably might be best for you to serve a section 42 and then get the keys and then finish it up afterwards. But because I know that particular flat, I know the area quite well, so the freeholder wasn't trying to fleece the leaseholder. So I knew that that particular price and that ground rent that was offered was acceptable. Because the big companies try and fleece you. Yeah, okay. Not always, but they try and fleece you sometimes and try and inflate the price. Yeah. And then the smaller freeholders, they're more reasonable. They're realistic with their prices.
So that's that's a great segue, in fact, into my next question was what happens if, you know, you kind of don't agree? So you've mentioned that some of the bigger players, they're trying to demand much bigger amounts. And I know I was looking at a short lease the other day and they wanted a crazy amount of money for the property and a crazy amount of money for the lease extension. So where do you come what do you do when there's a sort of a difference in what you feel it should be?
Yeah, if there's a discrepancy, then I get my lease extension surveyor involved. That's happened before. They tried to offer, they asked, I think about 7 or 8 grand above what I thought it should be. And then we weren't budging. This was a voluntary one. So I had to get my lease extension surveyor involved. Phoned him up. We done a lease extension survey report for £700 plus VAT, I think it was. And then he sent it off to the freeholder and to the freeholder's surveyor. And then once they saw that, they came down in price straight away.
And did it come to what was on the surveyor's report? Yeah,
basically, yeah.
But do they have to?
Surveyor done a survey.
Do they have to go with that, or could they just say, I don't really care?
No, they don't have to go with it. But I think the guy that I've got, he's been doing it for 30 odd years. So I think he's well respected in that lease extension game. So I think he's well known as well. So if he says something, then a lot of the time, then they think, okay, this person knows what he's talking about. So they trust the surveyor. So if that surveyor knows this other surveyor, and he's like top, like a quality surveyor, been doing it for years, then they respect his opinion in that sense. They can't argue with it. But if you get to that stage and it's still loggerheads, then the only thing you can do is go to a tribunal, and then the tribunal will sort it out. But with the ones that I do, then they're quite small in terms of they're under like 40k for lease extension. So them ones don't really go to tribunal. But if you go to the ones in central London, like prime central London, where they're like 200,000, 300,000, 500,000, then them ones are more likely to be like at loggerheads and maybe go to a tribunal in that sense. But for these small ones that I do, it's like 30 grand, 40 grand, it's just normally we just sort out between ourselves.
And sorry, I'm just aware of time and we've got quite a few questions, but I've still got questions. I know that, so we've also got Bernie Welsh, haven't we, in the community? He's all into into sort of lease extensions, but he looks at sort of bigger sets of flats. And I know from stalking you, Jason, that you like that you like to have the kind of smaller flats. So kind of, I think you've mentioned four or less. Can you explain why you sort of niche down to those types?
Yeah, with some lenders, every lender got their own different criteria. A lot of them don't like high rises. So if you have a ground floor, first floor, second floor, and a third floor, technically it's like 4 stories or 4 levels. A lot of lenders will lend on those 4 stories. If it's above that, then a lot of lenders drop out of the market because they kind of see it, they class it as a high rise in that sense. So plus in terms of like fire regs after like Grenfell, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the ones that I've gone for are just below that level in terms of stories, because it gives you more of a market to choose from in terms of mortgage lenders. That's why I do it, really.
Amazing. Well, that's been phenomenal. I've gone mad with me writing the notes. It's like I have so many questions. I mean, you know, your knowledge is just absolutely phenomenal, but I can see I can't be completely selfish. I can see that lots of people have been writing things in. So we've got lots of love. So we've got lots of hearts and, you know, people saying looking forward to this. You're a fantastic guy, really helpful. So just a few questions. Jason knew his priorities. That was when we were talking about you moving out. Omar said, basically, have you had any mentors, Jason, over time?
Not. I've had a brief mentor. Like there's a guy called. Well, it might take a little while anyway. But when I first started, there's no one around really, because all of my friends were playing FIFA, Tekken, Street Fighter. That's all they were doing. Computer games. Going on holiday a lot. I Napa, I Ibiza. I still played FIFA, still went Napa like quite a few times, but I was focused on properties, and then there was no one really around that to talk to in that sense. So a lot of the research I've done, I went to the property investors show at Excel in London. Went there on my J's because everyone's like, "Oh, we doing this Friday or Saturday." I'm going to the property show. It's like, oh, property show? What are you doing there? Let's look at properties. It's like, what are you looking at properties for? Someone to invest. It's like, oh, I'm going then. So I just went by myself. A lot of the time to these things. I must have been 15, 16 years straight. Just by myself. It was on twice a year at Excel. Just knowledge, talking to people. I mean, after I bought my first one, I met this guy, broker called AJ. I walked into the estate agent basically. I done a spreadsheet. I walked into the estate agent and I wanted to buy some properties. I mean, I walked in there and on my spreadsheet, I think I'd done a calculation so I can buy 4 properties. Yeah. I bought my first one, and then after that, done all the calculations, all the maths in order to buy 4. And because of capital appreciation, like I said, the rental income, Sainsbury's wage, a college wage, I managed to stack enough to buy 4 properties. So went in there, sat down, and they said, "Oh, yeah, I'd like to inquire about buying 4 properties." I mean, he looked at me, thinking, "Is this guy serious?" So I mean, I showed him the spreadsheet. He looked at the spreadsheet with all the percentages, all the figures. I mean, he looked at me. He said, "What would you?" So I told him, and he's like, "Why aren't you out there raving and playing football and this and that?" So I said, I'm still doing that. I said, I'm going to Christ with Myers this Saturday at Coliseum, Ministry of Sound next week, still raving, but I want to buy property as well.
Amazing.
And then he's like, "Who taught you?" I said, "No one, just learning, just watching Property Ladder and Homes Under the Hammer, Property Ladder with Sarah Beanie and location, all them kind of things. I was just watching, just picking up information. But then what he done, he took me to one of his refurbs in Edmonton, and he said, "Yeah, this is a refurb. I'm gonna pull out 35 grand out of this." I mean, I done one recently. That's what bought my Mercedes. He had a nice black Mercedes back then. I was like, oh, my eyes just opened up. Like, oh, this is amazing, because I didn't know about BRR and reconfiguring and that kind of thing. All I know or knew was about buy to let. But then he showed me the ropes a little bit. He was one of the first people that kind of gave me some guidance in that sense. And then, just by chance, he's one of the ones that I used to look up to. So, yeah, Jason, I've retired. This is my fourth time that I've come back out of retirement. I've just been getting bored. I'm thinking, 4th time you come out of retirement? I'd love for that to happen to me. And then, it was one of my kind of idols. I mean, just by chance, about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, probably 4 years ago actually, just before COVID, I saw this guy walk past me as I was walking to the gym. I mean, I looked at him. I mean, I looked at him again. It's like, AJ. He looks at me. He's like, Jason. Oh, I haven't seen you for about 15 years. Like, how are you? Because he retired again. After he'd done my mortgages for those properties, he retired again for the 4th time, and then that was it. Oh, how you been? Oh, I haven't seen you for a long time. Said, oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Like, where do you live? I just live around the corner. So, okay, yeah, I live in the same area as well. So met up for lunch. And then we were just chatting, told him what's happening, that I've been buying still after all this time. Told him how many properties I got. And then he's like, Jason, yeah, what? You got more properties than me.
Oh.
So I was like, really? I was like, really?
That's amazing.
So I was like, whoa, I couldn't believe it, bro. Couldn't believe it. So now, I live in the same area as him. Got in a better car than him.
Inspirational.
Got more properties than him.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa. Like, I never would have thought it. I had one back then when I first met him.
Yeah.
And now, it's not a competition, but I've just overtaken him in that sense. So I remember the saying, you just work until your idols become your rivals.
Wow, that's a great one.
It's crazy, yeah. But he just gave me some early knowledge, early inspiration, and then just move forward from there. Because he opened my eyes to, like I said, reconfiguring and the buy to let. So yeah, so that was kind of not really a mentor, but it gave me some guidance.
I love it.
I'm going forward.
I love it. Okay, so just whipping through these questions. So Bridget has said, are you saying marriage value? Yes, that's the right. Hamish has said, can you recommend a broker who specialises in short lease lending?
Yeah, I can, yeah. He's going to have to direct message me, and then I can send him the details.
Absolutely. And if you need any help, Hamish, I can help get you there. Attached there. Rachel has said, does anyone do this outside of the M25? Definitely, I can ask that. Yeah. Lots of people, and Hamish is on there. So I think we touched on, so Omar has talked about the changes of leasehold, so we kind of touched on that, so listen back if you didn't hear that. Then we've got Harish has said, so is the logic of this strategy that short lease flats sell for more of a discount than the cost of extending the lease?
Repeat that, sorry?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I really understand that. Is the logic of this strategy that the short lease flats sell for more of a discount than the cost of extending the lease? Yeah, I suppose. So what he's saying is that if it's 20 grand to extend the lease, you'd want to, and it's worth 20,000 with the new lease, you want to be buying it for at least less than 100,000.
Yeah. If you want to make profit. What I found recently, I think some of the agents are being a bit unrealistic. Like, just for argument's sake, say with a good lease is 200,000, and at the moment, just for argument's sake, it's worth 160k, and it costs 40 grand to extend the lease. They're putting it on the market for 160, and it costs 40k to extend the lease. End value is 200,000. It doesn't make sense. So the only people that will buy them ones, if they keep at that price, is owner occupiers to try and get onto the ladder. But normal investors will not buy that. So that will just sit on the market for a bit. People like me will monitor it, and then it will get reduced 2 or 3 months later, reduced again, and then more realistic price, snap up and buy it. So that's what I've been finding at the moment, because some agents don't understand that process. That there has to be some form of compensation or amount between, you know what I mean? You can't just buy it for 160, extend the lease, and then for 40 grand, and then it's worth 200. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. And also some lenders, some vendors, some mortgage salespeople, not mortgage salespeople, sales reps, for example, estate agents, they think that you can't get a mortgage on it. So just before Christmas, oh yeah, this lease is 72 years, you can't get a mortgage on it, you have to buy it cash. So I had to school her in front of the vendor and say, you can get a mortgage on it, blah, 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 blah. She said, no, you can't. But luckily, on my phone, I had the mortgage offer from my previous one from September. It's still on my phone, on my email. So I took it out and I showed it to her and said, look, this one was 68 years in terms of a lease. I got a mortgage for 17 years with Kent Reliance. They go, oh, yeah, I didn't know you could do that. Yeah. So I had to school her. I gave her like a mini masterclass right there and then. So when she goes forward to new clients, she understands they can get a mortgage on it going forward.
Amazing. So this kind of, Hamish, I think kind of answers your question. So Hamish is saying that he's doing his first one in Oxford. So Hamish is somebody who comes on to my clubhouse a fair amount, and he's doing some fantastic stuff. And he said, this is one of the negotiation points. It's often tricky to get a 25 to 30% margin just based on the difference in the lease. I think the agents will typically take a lease extension into account and drop it by a similar amount. As Jason mentioned, there are good options to add a room and a refurb. So that's kind of your all three. So yeah, so fun. Oh, Jason's going. I think somebody's at the door. So in overall, I think everyone can agree that Jason is absolutely fantastic. So we've got lots of basically that you rock, how great you are, how and I can definitely say how generous you are with your time. Where, Jason, can people find you? You know, I know that you do, you know, a fair amount of stuff, but is there anywhere specific that people can come and follow you? I think you do some training as well. So can they come and find you if they want to really learn more as well?
Yeah. So I'm on social media. I've been on Facebook for a little while, but I haven't really put any much property stuff on there. I've been on Instagram about 2.5 years. So I'm a bit slow in that sense. A lot of my property stuff not really on there, but Instagram I'm on there 2.5 years so far. TikTok I've been on there maybe 7-8 months. I'm on that as well. TikTok is Jason Patterson 365. Instagram, if you just type in Jason Patterson, that's Patterson, that should come up on there. I'm on Facebook as well. I'm on LinkedIn. Again, just type in Jason Patterson, that should come up. Yeah, I also do a bit of, got a YouTube channel, by the way, actually. The YouTube channel is just for reference only. Yeah, but not to build or grow or anything, because a lot of people ask me the same questions all the time. So I said, instead of me just repeating myself, I'll just open up a YouTube channel, and I just refer them to the YouTube channel. I mean, they can look at the documentation and the videos on the YouTube channel.
Wow.
So the same questions keep coming up over and over again.
Jason,
so I must just document it and keep on there.
That is so generous. That's yeah, really, really generous and amazing. And yeah, and also this will be on YouTube as well on my channel. So I'll set that out as well. And I like to try and break it down into chunks as well. So questions asked, and we break them into, I call them short longs. But the time has come, Jason. Really, really, thank you. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy diary in between going to the gym and looking after your kid and all those things that come with the success that clearly hard work and determination and knowledge and learning has got you. So yeah, you're an absolute inspiration to me. So again, thank you. And yeah, if anyone wants to follow Jason, please do. And yeah, we'll see you very soon.
So Shania just popped up briefly. You want to speak to her quickly or either?
Very quickly.
Shania just popped. Go on in. Shania, are you there?
I am here. Hello. Much love and admiration to you and a wonderful room. I just wanted to share something that might help people that want to flip short lease property. So I'm helping somebody at the moment. They couldn't sell their short lease property. It's one of the triples, as Jason calls it. It's got a short lease. It can be reconfigured. It's one bed over 50 square metres, and it's an absolute awfully rundown shitter. So if you want to flip it, in essence, basically, you can agree an assisted sale. You can get an investor to put the refurb monies up. You get this all done on a legal agreement, and then you can actually arrange so the current leaseholder can kick off the Section 42 notice or do an informal notice, and you tie it all up and you basically put it onto a flip. And you don't even have to, well, it's none of your own money because it's an assisted sale. It's investor money for the flip. And you don't have to pay for the lease extension because the person that buys the property pays for the lease extension. So boom, that's just my little addition to short leases. So there we are in a great room. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us and doing that. So Jason, I wouldn't mind if you could just help me because I've got so many things open on my screen. I seem unable to shut the room down. So if you wouldn't mind terribly shutting down the room, and I will shut off the Zoom. But thanks a lot, guys. Take care and see you next week at the same time.